Hello and welcome back to video number 3 of our video series called Visual Basic for the Absolute Beginner. We've looked at parameters and how to set a parameter, how to name a parameter. We've also looked at values, passing values from one property to another. So in today's video we're going to be looking at subroutines, how they work, how you can pass parameters from one subroutine to another, and on top of that we're going to be looking at functions. So it's going to be an exciting one. Stick tuned. Okay, so before I carry on, I just want to quickly show you guys a couple of tools that I use. These tools, if you want to download and use them, you can. They're absolutely free. I will also be exporting some of my code into those tools and their formats. So if you are one of those people that would like to have some of the source code, then look at the end of this video and you'll find a link at the description for where you can find the tools that I use and also some of the source code. One of the tools that I use is an application called Notepad++, and it is a very handy tool. It understands multiple languages, and in this case we are on Visual Basic. You can also do SQL. So out of the list of languages, you pick which code language you can use. If you would like to change some of the styles, you go to the settings and then style configurator, and over there you can go and pick some of the nice styles. For example, I like this Monokai, but you can pick any one you want. Maybe you like Twilight, maybe you like something else. So there's a whole list of styles that or themes you can select from that list. Let me go back to my favorite one there, save and close. Okay, so let's jump into today's video. We have already looked at the parameters. That's the parameter 1, parameter 2 from the previous video. And today's video we're going to be looking at subs and functions. So what is a sub? A sub is a section of code or a subroutine. And the code in that sub would run from the top to the bottom. Any sub can be triggered with two kinds of events. First of all, if it is a handled event, in this case we have a handled event from the button 1 click. So when the click of the button 1 has been raised, then the event is triggered. The second method of raising an event or raising a subroutine would be with a call statement. And in this lesson we're going to do just that. So I'm going to go here to my class. Now we haven't covered classes yet. I'm just going to put a space there. I'm going to put a space here to make a bit of a logical separation between the subs. And we don't need to be scared of putting spaces in between, because once the code compiles, it removes all of the spaces. It also removes all of the comments and everything that's additional. Okay, so in this section, let's create another sub. I'm going to go private sub, and I'm going to give it a name. Okay, so I have created a sub. It is private at the moment, and we'll cover that again a little bit later. And we've created a sub called change back to red. Now the idea is that whenever you write any code, that you always write the code only once, and that means that you can have a section of code hidden somewhere in your project where you can actually refer to it whenever you need it. Okay, so now that we have our sub, we're going to write a little bit of code in this. And I'm going to change the background color of our form to red. In this case, I'm going to put in a comment. A comment is done with an apostrophe. And I'm going to go change Okay, so that is a comment. It's in green, so you know that it's not actual code that's going to run. And the comment is just going to let you know what is happening in this subroutine or what's going to be fired at that time. Comments are great to keep track of, because when you are actually debugging your project and you need to get to a point and you don't know what the code's doing, then you can find yourself in a bit of a problem. Okay, so in this case, I want to change the background to red. Now, I've said just now that this is our class. And our class is actually the code that sits at the back of our form. So we have our form, we have the code at the back, and then we have the controls on top of the form, which means that our code is at the back and the controls on the front. Now with these three items combined, you have access to all of them at the same time. So when you're talking about the form or the class needs to know that you're talking to it itself. And therefore we use the word me. Me refers to, and you can see it refers to the current instance of the class or the structure. In this case, it's the class 1. Okay, we're going to go me dot background color or back color equals color red. Okay, so it's very simple code. It just changes the back color. Again, it's a property of the form that we're changing with a specific color. Now, color is not a property. Color is actually a drawing class that creates a color. So this is our first reference to a separate class outside of our actual project. Okay, now that we've actually created a subroutine, let's go and use it. Alright, so we have our button click event. I'm going to remove our last code, and I'm going to call this sub. Remember, there's two ways to raise this up. The first is by a click event or a handled event. The other one is with a call. Now, all I need to do is, again, maybe create a comment saying change back color to red. Okay, and to red. Okay, and to call that sub, all I need to go in is to write the sub's name. Change back color to red and enter. And that's actually as simple as that. So you write your sub and then you just call it by actually typing in the name. Now because the sub runs from the top to the bottom, it will start with button 1 click. It will then go to this change back to red. It'll then jump to this subroutine. It'll then action this code. It'll end the subroutine. It'll come back to button 1's saying that this subroutine is now completed, and then it'll go to end sub on the buttons event. Okay, let us go and give it a quick run. And there you go. Okay, I'm going to close that, and now we are going to pass a parameter to it. Okay, so now that we actually have a separate subroutine and we know how to call it, let's start with passing a parameter to the sub. Okay, in this case, we want to pass any color to this sub to change the background color. So in this case, I'm going to go dim my color as a color, and in this case I am going to go and put it to color dot blue, and in my sub I'm now going to create a section where the parameter can be loaded into. So in between these two brackets, that is where anything that the sub needs is applied. Okay, in this case we're going to go by val, not by reference but by the actual value, by val change color as a color. Okay, so what we've done now is we said, okay, this is a parameter. It's exactly the same as that. All we do is we say we're using a value, we give it a name, and we say the data type. Similar to this, we create a parameter, we give it a name and a data type. The only difference is when you declare it into memory, the parameter is actually creating an instance of the parameter. When you go by val, it's go by the value, which means it actually inherits, it collects this actual parameter, and then it gives it another name, and it gives it a data type, and then we can use it. Okay, for example, my background color can now be change color. So we've said the my color as a color, and we go color blue. Here we've created the pocket where the color needs to go in, and now we can say, okay, well this, our subroutine, is actually expecting us to provide this parameter. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to add my color. There we go. So basically we've just created a parameter with the color blue. We pass this parameter into the subroutine. This is the subroutine, this is the parameter in it. We then use that parameter to supply the new code with the value. Let's give it a quick go and see how it goes. And there we go. So you can see it's not very complicated. We can create different subs, and we can reference those subs by calling them. We can also have more than one parameter. All we have to do is put a comma and then go by val, by reference, by value, optional, or a parameter array. We'll cover all of those later on, but in the meantime we'll just use values. By val supply text as string, and then we can also use this as a second parameter, me dot label 1 dot text equals is text. Okay, that's just another parameter that was passed into the subroutine, and another method of using that parameter in a method to actually populate the value in that property. Okay, but now you can see again, this guy says, hang on a second, you've only supplied one value, I need two. Okay, and I can actually in here specify the value new text. Okay, so it's all happy. I can actually go and give it a run, and again new text with a blue background. Okay, all good. Alright, now we're going to look at something different. We're going to look at a function. So the difference between a sub and a function is that a subroutine only runs from the top to the bottom, and a function runs again from the top to the bottom. However, it returns a value. So in this case, I'm going to create a sub. I'm going to go a function, sorry, private function. I'm going to go add value to total. Ooh, I've got an update available. Okay, so again, I can pass parameters in here. So the total by val total as integer. Okay, and by val value as integer, and this is where the value now is going to need us to return a value, and we specify the return value within the function. So for example, the value that we're going to return is another integer. So I'm going to go as integer. Okay, so what we have is we've created a function, we gave it a name, we're passing two parameters into this function, and we're getting one value out of the function. You can see there's again a green squiggly line underneath there which says, hang on a second, something's wrong, but it's not going to cause an error. Okay, and the reason is because this function has not actually been called, and the integer that being returned at this point would be nothing. So what we can do is again a comment, say we need to add the value to the total. So we're going to go the return the return value is equal to the total plus the new value. Okay, and then we send it back, and we use the return value. Okay, so the keyword return means stop what you're doing and send the next value back, and this would be our value in our parameter that we've created here. Now, we didn't specify this as an integer, but that's actually a coincidence, and it works. The reason is because normally you could specify as integer. Okay, it will be happy with that, but in Visual Studio 2008 and later, you don't actually need to specify the data type, because it could figure out the data type by itself. However, to teach you about data types, I will be adding the data types in there so we can have an understanding of what we expect from the value. Okay, so just a reminder, it will work if you left this out, because it will automatically know return value, you can see there, is as an integer. Why? Because we took an integer plus an integer, we expect an integer, and therefore that has to be an integer. Okay, so anyway, so what we did is we created a function. We added the two values together as a return value as an integer. Okay, and then we took that value and we sent it back by using the return value, the return keyword. Alright, now how do we use it? Okay, it's quite simple. I'm going to go and change our button click and the subroutine I'm going to take out. I'm just going to go me.label1.text equals, and what we can do now is add value to total. Dim total as an integer, dim value as integer. Okay, my value is going to be 2, my total is going to be 162. Okay, and now we're going to say this label1.text will equal to add value to total, and the moment we enter, we can see that it is actually telling us that the add value to total is expecting two parameters. It's expecting the total as an integer, and it's also expecting the value as an integer, and it returns an integer. Okay, so we need to specify the total first, so that'll be total, comma, and then the value will be our value, and that's it. It's expecting the two property, the two parameters, and it brings back a an integer, and it will, that once it's calculated that value, it will then bring back the value and update our label text. Let's give it a run, and there we go. Okay, so 162 plus 2 is 164, so that means it went into here, it jumped to here, it passed the two values, it did the calculation, it returned that value as an integer back to the property, the text property of our label 1. Okay, so we've had a quick look at subroutines, and we had a quick look at functions, how to pass parameters from either parameter or a strongly typed value into our subroutine or parameters, our subroutine or function as a parameter. We've also looked at the function bringing back a value and how to use that value as to update another property. So that's the basics of actually using a subroutine and a function within your applications. Okay, so it is that time of the evening. that I'm going to say that if you have found any of this information helpful, please subscribe, please ring that bell. It'll help me grow my channel, and I'll be able to produce a lot more videos. So until next time, have a good day. Cheers, bye.